What's up, OD Nation? Welcome to this week's edition of the Thursday Blitz presented by ODTV. I'm your host, Caleb Williams. Joined by me in studio today is Cade Williams.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Last Sunday, the NFL season wrapped up, so what better way to put a cherry on top than to look forward to next season?
Yeah, we got free agency right around the corner, and then we have the draft about a month after that.
Got some exciting topics coming up for y'all. Let's start out with the first thing that's going to be happening, not the Combine. We're going to go farther than the Combine. We're going to go with the free agency period starting up in the next couple of weeks. Who do you got as your top three? Well, let's start with your number one, free agent.
So for me, my number one most intriguing free agent is going to be Stephon Diggs.
Interesting.
He's a guy who has been pretty solid in the league for a long time, stemming back from his time with the Vikings. He had a decent stint with the Bills. I think he showed a little bit of his character issues when he wasn't getting the ball as much as he thought he was going to be getting the ball, and kind of like weaseled his way out to get to Houston. And unfortunately, he had that season-ending ACL injury about 2 games into his stint with the Texans.
I think he was kind of holding back the Bills, which makes me concerned.
But here's the thing: like the Bills didn't make it as much further than they did last season with him on the team.
True.
So it's tough to say that he was holding them back. I think that this year he would have added an extra layer to that Bills offense with having Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, and then you have Stephon Diggs. So you have 3 pretty good receivers that need to be covered, as well as you have Dalton Kincaid, who is an up-and-coming rookie, and then as well as James Cook. He's pretty good in the passing game as well.
I see where you're coming from. So what team do you think he would fit best on going into free agency?
Given the circumstances of what happened in Houston, and given the fact that Houston only really has one main guy in it's not Tank Dell, it's the other, I forgot.
Nico
Collins, who are also, they've had injuries problems with the Texans, with Nico Collins going out with that horrible leg injury against the Chiefs. This is awful. But given those circumstances, I feel as though his best place would be to stay put in Houston. I feel like Houston would do themselves a service by allowing him to stay with the Texans. I forgot to change my camera. Staying with the Texans, I think that Stroud had an off year this year. It's no surprise to anyone they had an off year this year, but bringing Diggs back will definitely help him kind of break out of that slump heading into next season.
I think you're right, but I think you're giving him a little too much credit. I think he's on his way out of the league soon. He's pushing 35. He's coming off an ACL injury. It's really hard for the older players to rehab significant leg injuries like that, like you saw with Kirk Cousins in Atlanta dealing with that Achilles injury. Now, there's not going to be teams lining up to give Stephon Diggs over $100 million contract this offseason. However, he might have a little more slack.
Right, but the whole thing is that Diggs gives that veteran presence for that wide receiver room, because I think the Texans will draft a receiver this year to be able to add to that wide receiver room, but I feel as though Diggs will give them some stability to be able to allow that rookie wide receiver to kind of grow a little bit before they stick him into like a second string or like a slot receiver role.
Okay.
Who do you have as your most we have 3 of them that we're going to go over, but who's your number one most intriguing right now? Who's your first one right now?
My number one is every MLB cycle or every free agency cycle, there's that sweepstakes player everyone's going to be bidding against each other for. And this year I'm going with that guy. It's T. Higgins. Young wide receiver. He has a little bit of injury history, but a young, versatile wide receiver, very explosive. Ran very well next to Jamar Chase. I think he's going to have some very, very high bidding suitors in free agency from either teams that are on the fringe of competing or teams that are looking for that one more player to get them past the college championship into the Super Bowl.
With that being said, you mentioned that he might go to a team. He's probably going to go to a team that is looking for that guy, that wide receiver to kind of fit in there and get them over the hump. Who are you seeing? Where are you crystal balling T. Higgins to go?
I'm crystal balling him where he was rumored to be in trade talks to go to this team, this previous trade cycle, Washington. Washington's looking for a explosive wide receiver to run next to Terry McLaurin, who doesn't have a lot of time left in the league.
That's crazy to say.
He needs to draw. Washington needs that player to draw attention away from Terry, and T. Higgins is that guy. Because you draw attention away from Terry, now Terry's able to do his thing, and his numbers will go up.
But here's the thing, though. It's weird that you mentioned that, saying that Terry it doesn't have long in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the longevity of the wide receiver position. The wide receiver position is one of the longest positions that you play in the NFL. That has the most longevity in the league. Mm-hmm. And Terry he's barely 30.
True.
So while I don't agree with the statement that he doesn't have a lot of time left. I think he has at least a solid 5 to 7 years left.
It depends on the player. Like players like Mike Evans, you'd swear they're going to play forever, but you look at these other wide receivers that they get higher up into the age brackets, mm-hmm. and they have no more suitors anymore. Even though they can still produce, they're effectively out of the league.
Now, really quick, tell me when was the last time Terry was out with a long-term injury?
I would believe was his concussion last season.
Now, when was the last time Mike Evans was out with a long-term injury? How many long-term injuries has Mike Evans had?
Not a lot. He's consistently getting over 1,000 yards per season, so I would assume not a lot of long-term injuries.
But he has been very injury-prone. Whereas Terry McLaurin, you barely see him show up on the injury report. Now we're getting off topic here.
Yeah,
I agree with your sentiment that T. Higgins goes to Washington because mm-hmm. they're going to be very aggressive this year. They know what they're missing, and they know where they're going to get it. Because if they had a wide receiver 2 that wasn't Noah Brown or Olamide Zaccheaus, or God forbid KJ Osborne wanted to play a game, they would have had a higher flying offense than they did this previous season.
You're saying if KJ Osborne wanted to play a game like it was his choice.
There's no way he was out that long with the injury that he had. There's no possible way he was out that long. But like you mentioned, T. Higgins will provide that extra dimension for Washington to be able to run alongside Terry McLaurin and kind of take some of that pressure off of him, and even so allow more stuff over the middle, like the tight end or like the slot receiver position. It'll just add another depth to that Washington offense. And
there's many holes in DC that Washington needs to address. However, that pick is much better used towards a defensive player in this draft cycle. Use that money towards, and with the free agency players this season, defensively isn't really that strong.
Yeah.
Use those first round picks, the first round pick and second round, to address the defense, address that defensive back position, address that edge rusher position, and then go out and get you some bargain bin players like Chase Young. Bring him back to DC, or see if Levante David wants to play another season. Go out and re-sign Bobby Wagner.
All right, let's move on. So, do you want to give your second one, or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
So my second one is Byron Murphy.
Okay.
Byron Murphy was traded to the Minnesota Vikings last season from the Arizona Cardinals. Since then, he has produced 9 interceptions, and he's currently pending a free agent. He's one of the better defensive players in this free agency cycle. He's 27 years old. He's still a very great player. He's just 27, that's 26, 27, 28 range. You're entering your prime as a player. On average, you would say 26, 27, 28 is the prime.
It's very seldom you see a player of his caliber, a defensive back of his caliber, hit the free agent market. This is very reminiscent of Josh Norman hitting the free agent market back in 2000 and I believe it was 14 when he hit his stride with the Panthers, and then he hit free agency, went to Washington. And if you look at that contract, compare that to Byron Murphy, what he should get.
Josh Norman, he would have hit the free agency market in 2015 and going into the 2015-2016 season.
So that's what I'm saying. It's very reminiscent of Josh Norman hitting the open market, seeing as how locked down of a corner he has been in his time with Arizona and now with the Vikings. I think he could garner really. There's a lot of teams in this league that need defensive back help, especially at the corner position. But who do you think needs help the most right now? Who do you think is going to grab him in free agency?
I think he goes back. I think he goes back to Minnesota. Minnesota has 3 free agent cornerbacks currently. on the market, including him, Stephon Gilmore, and Shaquille Griffin. I believe they'll bring him back to solidify that young core, him, Cam Bynum, that duo, that great duo over there in Minnesota. And they might go out and grab Shaquille Griffin again. If not, there's the draft. There's other free agents that they may look in their direction. But I believe they would want to have Byron Murphy back to complement Cam Bynum.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with how now turbulent that Minnesota offense is going to start to seem. With now Darnold being a pending free agent, they're probably gonna let him walk. JJ McCarthy's probably gonna step into the starting role there in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario, he's not ready. You have Daniel Jones who's gonna step in that role. God forbid. But having a good solid piece on that defense goes a long way, especially like you mentioned with Cam Bynum. Those young pieces back there, and then that defensive line is pretty solid year in, year out.
Who do you got number 2? Who's number 2 on your list?
So for me, number 2, I have pending free agent guard Zach Martin from the Cowboys. He is currently 34 years old. He is rehabbing an injury right now. He has been kind of injury prone as of late. And I'm currently crystal balling Zach Martin to the retirement home. I think he's going to either, whether he retires before free agency starts, whether he retires in the middle of it, whether he retires at the end of it when no one signs him, whether he signs like a minimum contract and he doesn't make it out of camp. I think that Zach Martin's time in this league is just about over.
That's not fair.
It's hard.
That's not.
Caleb, stop. You were talking about how hard it is for a player to rehab from an ACL injury. That's a wide receiver. That's a skills position.
Yeah.
That is a position that, you do rely a lot on your legs. But you look at an offensive lineman, their whole job relies on their legs.
I'm saying
a solid base.
I'm saying it's not fair that you picked a player to retire and not like put a player that's actually going to be signed. You picked a player and you say, "Nah, he's just going to retire."
It's not a cop out. It's a fair assessment to make. Zach Martin, he's been a great player in this league for a long time for the Dallas Cowboys. He has been somebody who has been a thorn in the NFC East side for the longest time, shutting down even the best pass rushers that have come through.
He's where the blitz goes to die.
He's absolutely where the blitz goes to die. And I'm not discrediting all the work he has done and all the things that he's done in this league. I just think that it might be time for him to consider retirement. There's a lot of teams that need offensive line help. You can't really do much if you can't stay healthy. And I don't see a team throwing much more than say $5 million at you. And that's nothing to scoff at, but I'm saying a team's gonna be very hesitant to sign you, especially with your age and your injury history.
Teams are desperate. A team will probably throw a league minimum at him, but other than that, go with your third guy.
Yeah, no, I said all I need to say about that. I think Zach Martin is gonna end up retiring here eventually, which is kind of sad because he's been a great player in this league for a while. Do you want me to do my third?
Yeah, go ahead with your third guy.
All right, so my third guy, I have Eagles linebacker Josh Sweat. Fresh off a Super Bowl win, he believes he should have won. What?
I thought Josh Sweat was a defensive end.
Linebacker. He's listed as a linebacker.
Okay.
Fresh off of a Super Bowl win against the Kansas City Chiefs, he believes that he should have won the Super Bowl MVP award. I didn't get to see much, so I can't really talk or speak upon that. If he doesn't re-sign in Philadelphia, which I think Howie Roseman could get that done, I think that he can get anything done, really. He would be able to sign whoever he wanted if he wanted to. He can, if someone retire 30 years, he can get to sign. But I don't foresee, especially with this young core, I don't foresee them putting a lot of time and effort into negotiating with Sweat to get a deal done. With that being said, I think that he goes to the West Coast with pending free agent Khalil Mack. I think he'll fit right in there with the LA Chargers.
Okay.
He'll immediately elevate that defense to another level that they haven't seen yet. And now you're going to have him, you're going to have Bosa, you're going to have, I think Perryman's still on the team, right?
Not sure.
But you have a good group of guys there, and I believe that Sweat would be that guy to kind of elevate that defense to another level to allow them to compete at the level they need to compete at.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying I believe the Eagles will try a little bit harder. They have sort of tied themselves down a little bit with signing Bryce Huff over the previous offseason. and he hasn't really produced much for the Eagles. So they're going to probably be doing a lot of maneuvering players out, renegotiating contracts to try and get Josh Sweat a deal done because they want that pass rush. I saw it against Super Bowl. You don't want to just pull a puzzle piece out and try and stick a new one in there without trying every viable option to keep that same puzzle piece.
No, and I wholeheartedly agree with you that I think they're going to try their best to keep him, but with that young core they got, like you mentioned with Bryce Huff, I don't think that they're going to put as much effort as they should into trying to get a deal done, which is going to kind of turn him off of Philadelphia. Even though you just won a Super Bowl with them, and Vic Fangio, he's a strong defensive mind, and anyone would be happy to play for him. I just think that he's going to value himself more than they're going to be trying. He's going to value himself more than they value him.
Well, I mentioned Bryce Huff, but I also mentioned in the same breath that Bryce Huff didn't do much this season for the Eagles.
Didn't do much this year.
He was basically buried. He didn't produce well for Philadelphia, so I'm thinking that they're going to want to move on from him, and will be happy to, just to keep Josh Sweat and then go look for a bargain bin pass rusher to put next to him.
I think Sweat walks and he goes to LA.
All right. My last free agent is pending free agent from the Ravens, Ronnie Stanley. Mm-hmm. He's 30 years old, going on 31. He doesn't have he's a lineman, so linemen don't really last much. Many don't really last past 35 in this league. This is going to be probably his final payday. He's still very good, a very good lineman, can't produce, and I think he can prove that with the team that can throw the most money at him and needs him the most, the Tennessee Titans. Rebuilding team, understandably so. You're going to want a solid to great lineman to protect your number one asset, which is going to be an incoming rookie quarterback that they will take with the number one overall pick.
Yeah, I agree with you there, is that you need to have one solid guy on that line that you can lean on and get some other guys there that they can lean on to kind of lead the way for that offensive line, especially when you have a rookie QB coming in trying to settle himself into the league. We've seen it time and time again where these rookie quarterbacks come in and they get behind a shoddy offensive line. Their confidence breaks because they're going down too often or they're under too much pressure and they're throwing like 15 interceptions. So I think that Ronnie Stanley would fit right in with the Tennessee Titans, and it'd be stupid of them not to go and grab him, knowing what they're going to be doing in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. And the player that I think they're going to take with number one is Cam Ward. He's a right-handed thrower. Ronnie Stanley's a left tackle. Match made in heaven. Protecting the blind side is the number one important thing in the NFL when it comes to anything.
All right, so that's that. That's all I got on my list.
Yeah, we only had the three. So we're gonna move on to we both did a top 5 mock draft prior to this episode. Why don't you go ahead and read your number one overall pick for me?
So my number one overall pick, I have currently the Titans hold that pick.
Yes.
But it is rumored that they could trade out of it.
Yes.
Given the circumstances of who they could grab later on. This QB class is very deep with players like Dylan Gabriel in it. And Dylan Gabriel and Jackson Dart. Players like that. I think QB, while you do have your guys that are going to be drafted early, I feel as though it's deep enough to where you don't have to really rely on taking them with the number one overall pick. With that being said, I think they're going to be trading out of the first overall pick, and that pick is going to be going to the Carolina Panthers, who are going to draft Abdul Carter at number 1.
What did the Panthers trade to get the number one pick, Cade?
2 first-rounders and J.C. Horn.
Interesting.
Their current first-rounder, the first-rounder for next year, and J.C. Horn.
Interesting play.
I think that Abdul Carter will add some much-needed firepower to this defense that they lost with Frankie Louvu leaving, with Hassan Reddick leaving, like in the past seasons. They haven't had a guy that they can rely on that pass rush, and I think that Abdul Carter out of Penn State will provide that spark that defense needs.
Brian Burns getting traded last season to the Giants.
How could I forget about Brian Burns getting traded last season? So you need a guy in there that you can grow and develop yourself to provide that kind of cornerstone for your defense.
I think the Panthers have way too many positions to fill. They can't really afford to monopolize trading not only this year's pick, but a number one overall pick next year. A first round pick next year. When you're picking in the top 10 this season, I don't think they could afford that right now. That pick will have a lot of value. I don't think trading up to number one is the play for the Panthers right now. If that's your choice, that's your choice. I think despite the number one overall pick being in trade buzz, it happened with the Bears. They traded with the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers want to make that mistake again. I think it'll stay with the Titans this year, and they select the number one quarterback off the board, Cam Ward. The gunslinger out of Miami. Very calm in the pocket. Big arm. He is going to be that building block for the Titans when they move on from Will Levis.
No, I agree. I agree with you on the fact that if the Titans do stay at that pick, they do take Cam Ward. It showed this season that Will Levis is not going to be the answer. However, you can still make the excuse that offensive line was not that great, that Will Levis never had the time. But it's like Will Levis isn't a pro quarterback. He has not shown anything that I saw that proves that he's a pro NFL quarterback.
No.
And I think that the time is right to grab a quarterback in the draft and kind of move on, whether they keep Will Levis for one more year, switch him out half the way through the season with Cam Ward so he can start getting his reps in, or if they just start him right away, which they're probably starting right away. If they're taking him with number one overall pick, they're probably going to start him right away. But yeah, I agree that Cam Ward does go number one to the Titans if they stay there. But mine is going to be Abdul Carter to the Panthers.
Okay. All right, you've Abdul Carter to the Panthers trading via Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. I do.
All right.
Who's your number two, though?
My number two pick, the Browns hold that pick, and I think they're going to draft Abdul Carter. With Myles Garrett in trade talks, the market for him is very hot, heating up. Even though the Browns say they don't want to trade him, sometimes you don't really have a choice. Same thing happened with the Panthers. They said they want to trade Brian Burns. They end up selling him to the Giants for only a second-round pick. Myles Garrett's not Brian Burns. He holds leverage. He holds a lot more leverage than Brian Burns did, and he's a lot more elite of a player. With that being said, I think the Browns would be comfortable trading him somewhere, getting some assets as well, and then taking a premier pass rusher in Abdul Carter at number two.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that one. And if I didn't have the Panthers take him at number one, the trade, I probably would have taken him here too. However, I think that the Browns have, much like the Panthers, have a lot of needs they need to fill. They've fallen so hard from being a playoff team to just nothing. But who I have them taking number two, quarterback Cam Ward. With the Deshaun Watson saga just about wrapped up in Cleveland, I feel as though they're going to probably be moving on from him very, very soon, especially with that contract he has. He's not going to come back to Cleveland. I don't think he's ever going to play another snap for the Browns ever again. And Jameis Winston, while he is serviceable, I don't foresee him being that long-term option. So bringing Cam Ward in will provide the Browns with a little bit of stability at the quarterback position while they try and figure out stuff like wide receiver core and their defense with Myles Garrett wanting to be traded. They're probably going to lose Denzel Ward here pretty soon as well. Yeah, I think he said Denzel Ward said that he wants to go wherever, if Garrett goes, I want to go too. I think I saw that somewhere. Is that where if Garrett's gone, he's gone too. So the Browns need at least something to hold on to, and I think that Cam Ward is going to be that person that they hold on to kind of guide them a little bit, kind of hold the line as they try and rebuild as a franchise.
I wouldn't put it past them to say that they won't trade out of that pick. They might, like you said, they have a lot of gaps to fill, and selecting someone number two overall is not going to fix things overnight.
No.
with a deep pass rusher class as well as a quarterback class, they could afford to trade at number 2. But I don't foresee that, even if Abdul Carter goes number 1 overall, like you're saying, I don't think that they could afford to draft a quarterback that high up and not play Deshaun Watson. Unfortunately, you're paying Deshaun Watson way too much to justify not starting him.
But here's the thing: it's not their choice though, because he's hurt. Like, he's injury prone.
He's hurt.
He re-injured his Achilles.
But if and when he comes back, he's gonna start.
I mean, look at Daniel Jones.
They made their bed and they have to lie in it. It's either they're gonna play him or you cut him.
I was gonna say the Giants ended up cutting Daniel Jones, so I wouldn't put it past the Browns to do the same thing and like cutting Deshaun Watson, like cutting your losses where you can.
I think the Browns are an organization that will stick with that gamble and hope it at least pays off a little bit, or they make some of that money back that they put on him. So even if Cam Ward is available at number 2, I don't think it would be responsible for the Browns to select him.
All right.
Go ahead. Go with your number 3. You said this is going to make me mad, and before the show started, I'm getting a little...
Number 3 of the New York Giants, I have Travis Hunter going to the New York Giants.
Okay.
I feel as though it's a good pick for New York. New York, they're an oddball team because they have the potential to be good if they have a quarterback, especially with Malik Neighbors, that offensive line with Andrew Thomas and the other guys they have like set in place there. I feel like the offensive line is pretty good. You get a quarterback back there, you're good to go. However, that defense is awful. That defense is terrible.
Well,
the secondary at least is terrible. You have Eric Stokes back there, and who else? Nobody. The defensive line, you have Dexter. The defensive line is good. Dexter Lawrence. You have Brian Burns back there. Like, the defensive line is fine. It's just the secondary. Their secondary is weak. And I feel as though Travis Hunter, if he decides he wants to play corner, I think he'll fit right in with that defense and help to elevate that defense a little bit more as they try and like find themselves as far as quarterback goes, because they really have no options at quarterback right now.
No, I agree. I have him going at number 3 overall of the Giants as well. You're right. That secondary is atrocious. If you draft Travis Hunter, he's listed as a cornerback. They're probably going to work him in the combine as a cornerback, and he's going to be drafted as a cornerback. You're going to work him in that secondary, and you're going to build to complement him. They could afford to go into free agency and grab Stephon Gilmore on a cheap deal. They can go into free agency and grab Fabian Moreau, or see if you can lure my free agency pick Byron Murphy. See if you can lure him over to New York.
Even Javarius Ward.
Javarius Ward. He's 29 years old, but still has some juice in him. See if you can duo them and see where you are. Now, the Giants have to make some decisions because they are, with cutting Daniel Jones, their cap space is not the greatest. They don't have that much room to maneuver. So I was going to say cheap bargain bin deals. See if you can get Shaq Griffin, or see if you can get Stephon Gilmore to complement Travis Hunter, and don't put all the weight onto him, on the rookie.
Let's see, we agreed on one.
Yeah, at least we agreed on one. My number 4 overall pick is McMillan from Arizona, wide receiver. Unfortunately, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but McMillan, great. I've heard his name thrown around plenty of times. Should have been considered for the best wide receiver position. The award for the best at the wide receiver position in college football.
Oh, the Blitnikoff?
Huh?
The Blitnikoff?
I don't believe it should have gone to Travis Hunter, but
I mean,
I think the Patriots are a little bit more. They're a little bit more sound of a team, but you need to get Drake May some weapons, and I think that McMillan, great wide receiver, good route running, explosive potential. He'll be great. He'll be great for the Patriots. Fit right in and give Drake May that guy. It'll be like adding Randy Moss to Tom Brady.
I mean, I don't quite agree with the Patriots taking a wide receiver at that position, considering they have not had the greatest luck in drafting first-round wide receivers as of late, with Polk and the other guy slipped my mind back in 2019. That's how forgettable he was back in 2019. But
Are you talking about N'Keal Harry?
yeah, N'Keal Harry, there it is, N'Keal Harry. I'm not saying that McMillan's going to be like one of those guys. However, on top of the fact that they have not had the best luck with drafting first-round receivers, I don't think that they should focus on a receiver right now. I think that with Drake May back there and with how shotted that line is, you need to focus on protecting your rookie quarterback. Or now it's going to your sophomore quarterback. And that's why I have the Patriots taking offensive lineman or offensive tackle out of LSU, Will Campbell.
All right.
He will definitely add right to the offensive line immediately and help that protection with Drake May back there. Even though Drake May, he can move around a lot. He's no Lamar Jackson. He's no Jaden Daniels. He's no Jalen Hurts. He is a big guy. He is a big quarterback. He's more like a Josh Allen type of quarterback. Yes, he's mobile. Yes, he's able to move, but like his first option is going to be to pass the ball. His first read is going to be passing the ball, and that's why he's going to stick in the pocket for a little longer than these more mobile QBs would. And with that, you're going to need to protect your guy against these stout pass rushers out there in the AFC. So you can just grab a guy in free agency later or later in the draft. This wide receiver class is kind of deep, or it's got at least a good bit of talent in the draft. And then you go out in the free agency and grab a cheap, bargain bin wide receiver to add to your core.
All right.
So Will Campbell out of LSU is my pick for the Patriots. My last pick here, number 5, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have Michigan defensive lineman Mason Graham going to Jacksonville.
Yep.
Jacksonville does have a lot to fix as well. They do have some pieces in place with Trevor Lawrence on that offense with Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, but I think they have kind of abused that defense a little bit.
Calvin Ridley's on the Titans.
Oh, my fault. I forgot he got traded.
Christian Kirk is he's
Kirk,
on the
that's right.
Jaguars. He unfortunately he broke his collarbone early in the season. He'll be coming back off that injury, hoping to prove that contract was worth it for the Jaguars. So far, it's kind of been 50-50. He had a good season on the first year of the contract. Didn't really have a great season last year, but that's because he was hurt. I agree that defensive line, you're going to take that blueprint from the Eagles. You want someone to complement Tracy Walker, who you took in the top 3 couple drafts ago.
Travion Walker?
Huh?
Travion Walker?
Yeah, him. Not Tracy Walker. Tracy Walker's he's a different player. You're going to want to have Mason Graham complementing that and taking those double teams, clearing the path for Walker. And if Walker's taking the double team, you're clearing the path for Graham. So you're taking that exact blueprint from the Eagles with Jordan Davis and his name's slipping my mind. Oh my goodness, he was just in the Super Bowl too. Jordan Davis and
Jalen
Carter.
Yeah, Jalen
Carter.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars would be remiss if they took anybody else but a defensive lineman, and specifically this defensive lineman in the draft. I think they need to focus more on that defense and let the offense kind of figure itself out.
Yeah, because you still have Evan Ingram, you still have Christian Kirk, you
have pieces in place.
You have T-Law.
You just don't have any. You don't really have any pieces in place on that defense besides Walker.
ETN, you're letting one of your guards walk in Brendan Sheriff so far, but I think the offense will be decent at best. But you want that pass rush,
yeah.
Especially in today's league. You want to heavily focus on the pass rush.
So we're gonna go through this quickly because I don't want to spend too much time talking about this list.
Yeah.
Our top 5 teams heading into the 2025 season.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go from 5 to 1, I guess.
All right.
So we'll just compare them. Who's my 5? I got the Ravens.
My 5, I have Minnesota.
Okay. Just quick. Well, why you have Minnesota there?
They made the playoffs this season with Sam Darnold, which is no easy feat. I think they're a team that's built to plug and play a quarterback when needed, depending on the caliber of player. Because Sam Darnold, former first-round pick, top 3 pick, you can't just put some guy back there like Josh Dobbs, and they're going to do the same exact thing, go to the playoffs. I believe that that J.J. McCarthy, who didn't get a chance to play in his rookie year, will be the perfect plug-and-play guy right there.
I think they take a step back, but that's just my opinion. I think while they are built to be able to accept a quarterback right away, I think they take a step back. because you're going to have rookie quarterbacks going into that role, and he's not going to know the offense like a veteran would.
Technically a second-year guy, but he's rookie experience. He never got to play in the regular season. It just all depends what they do in the secondary. How many of their guys they bring back, like Byron Murphy and perhaps Shaquille Griffin.
So I have the Ravens at number 5 because they've been consistent competitors all like for a long time now.
Okay.
And it's no secret how good they are, especially with Harbaugh. You have Lamar, MVP runner-up this year, 2-time MVP overall. Then you have King Henry back there, who was a great addition during the offseason. You have a high-flying offense with Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, and that defense is just very stout with Nate Wiggins back there. They have a very solid all-around team. They just can't get over that hump for some reason. They have a problem competing in the playoffs with these higher caliber teams. But I think that doesn't count against them in my eyes when it comes to like who's the best team one of the best teams going into the next season, because they're always going to be consistent competitors as long as you back there you have Lamar Jackson and you have Jim Harbaugh. They're always going to be constant competitors.
I agree.
All right.
I still have Minnesota number 5.
Okay. Who do you have number 4?
Number 4, I have Washington.
I do as well. Yes.
Okay, so that's when we can agree on Washington making the conference championship for the first time in over 30 years, winning a playoff game for the first time in just about the exact same amount of time.
All with a rookie quarterback and a first-year head coach.
Rookie quarterback. Well, first-year head coach.
When I say first-year head coach, I mean rookie. I mean it's his first year in Washington.
First year in Washington. A rookie quarterback that can do that with the weapons, quote unquote, that he had. I think that they're poised to be a team that's built for sustained success. Mm-hmm. It all depends on what they do in the draft and free agency. The draft free agency will determine whether this team is built for success, to be sustained success. They need a home run running back. Brian Robinson Jr. is more of a power back. They need more help in the secondary. Maybe retain some of those core guys that they brought in for the defensive line. Dorrance Armstrong. You got Frankie Louvu down for a long-term contract. Bring back Bobby Wagner.
No, I agree. I think that they have a great blueprint for success right now. It just depends on how they fix what they lacked this season, how they fix it in the draft and free agency. So they're going to get wide receivers, secondary help, and then get some linebacker help as well.
Absolutely. Number 3?
For me, number 3, I have the Buffalo Bills.
I also have the Buffalo Bills at number 3.
Awesome. It's tough every year to see the Bills make it so far, especially with how good they are especially how good Josh Allen is as a quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just to see them like not be able to get over that hump being the Chiefs every year. And it's frustrating, but I feel as though, like I mentioned with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, is the fact that if they're Josh Allen, they're always going to be a competitor. Because Josh Allen, he's done so much more with so much less. I would argue that Mac Hollins and Khalil Shakir, they're not marquee wide receivers. Now, I'm not trying to diss them and say that they're bad. I'm just saying that when you think of marquee wide receiver, you don't think of Khalil Shakir. You don't think of Mac Hollins. He makes those players better.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen makes those players better.
And that's why he's the MVP.
Okay. Well, that's a different argument. And then that defense with Apenza, a bunch of, Apenza, and, they were so good.
Mm-hmm.
And they have such sustained success. It's hard not to think that they're, one of the top 3 teams in this league.
Yeah, AJ Epinesa, Von Miller, Von Miller still at this age is producing, Matt Milano, good core guys there on the defensive line. And you said Mac Hollins and Khalil Shakir, but you forgot about the other guy. You forgot about Keon Coleman, the receiver that they took in the second round of this previous draft. And you're right, he makes them all better. He made James Cook better. He made Khalil Shakir better, Mac Hollins, who before coming to Buffalo was a practice squad player. He was buried on the depth chart. Now he's a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2. So I think that the Bills are poised for success. Their window's closing, but I think that they can make another run or two in these next couple of seasons.
I think I messed up and I said Mac Hollins was a rookie. Or I think I said something about Mac Hollins. I didn't realize he was already been in the league for a little bit.
Yeah, he was on the Eagles. I think he was on the Eagles roster when they won the Super Bowl.
I think you might be right.
In 2017.
Who do you have at number 2?
Number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Oh, you're not speaking, so that means you don't agree because you already have the Ravens.
I don't agree.
I forgot.
I would have the Ravens at number 5.
I have the Ravens because you still have Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP, overall well-rounded quarterback. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's still very good. He'll probably be in MVP conversation next season as well. You still have Derrick Henry. You have Zay Flowers, who just made a Pro Bowl this previous season. Rashad Bateman seems to be blooming now. And you have that defense. You said you have Nate Wiggins. You have these guys. You have his name slipping my mind from Michigan. You have great pass rushers. It's hard not to put the Ravens at number 2, especially since they were a drop 2-point conversion away from going to overtime against the Buffalo Bills.
I agree with what you're saying, and those are like all the same points I made when I had them at number 5. The only reason I have them at number 5 is because of just the sheer like the teams that I have in the top 2 spots. I can compare them to the Ravens and say that they are better. Now the other two that have the Bills and the Commanders, I think that they're better set up for more sustained success. But no, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm not trying to like disrespect the Ravens and say that they're not good enough. Like they're definitely a top 5 team in the league. But when you talk about a team like that I have number 2, Philadelphia, the Super Bowl champions, I have them at number 2. It's hard to bet against them, especially given how dominant they were this entire postseason and down the stretch of the regular season and this postseason. With the pieces they have in place, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, with Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, that defense. Yes, you might be losing a piece in Josh Sweat, but you still have a very young defensive core, along with a very young defensive line and linebacker core, especially, and also secondary. Cooper DeJean, Quinion Mitchell. You have a well-rounded young team that just won the Super Bowl in a very dominant fashion against a team that has been the boogeyman of the NFL.
I'm speechless that you have them at 2. I'm so speechless.
Why is that?
Because they just won the Super Bowl and they took down the boogeyman. You listed all the reasons as why they should be the number 1 team going into 2025, and that's why I have them at number 1 going into 2025. They not only beat the Chiefs, they spanked the Chiefs. They added Saquon Barkley, who almost broke Eric Dickerson's record and should have been in heavier consideration for MVP. A.J. Brown, who's consistently good when he has some injury concerns, but he's still consistently good. Devontae Smith, the former Heisman, he's consistent. Dallas Goedert. You still have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. A young core of defensive players in Reed Blankenship, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And then that defensive front, if they bring back Josh Sweat, that gives you Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. It's a recipe for them to run the NFL and potentially go undefeated next season.
The only reason I don't have them at number 1 and I have this team at number 1 instead is because the Eagles didn't really face anybody with a tough defense all postseason. You can look at me all you want like that. Washington's defense, not great.
Oh, no, I wasn't with Washington.
Green Bay's defense, not great. The Rams' defense, definitely not great. If they had met this team, first of all, they should have met this team and not Washington.
Oh, I knew this where this was going.
I have the Detroit Lions as the number 1 team going into 2025.
You frustrate me so much. Detroit?
Yes, Detroit. Look at that offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And look at their running back core.
And look at their quarterback.
Jared Goff. He was an MVP finalist. Jared Goff was an MVP finalist this year.
Because they needed a 4th guy.
That 4th guy was Joe Burrow. You look at the Detroit Lions, the only caveat that why they did not perform in the playoffs was because that defense was diminished. If they had even at least Aiden Hutchinson on that defense going in the divisional game, Washington was not making it past Detroit. Eagles would have met the Detroit Lions in the championship game and not Washington. And they would have lost to the Detroit Lions. because they did not face a tough defense all postseason.
Madness. Just madness.
I think that the defense, the way the defense is, and how well-rounded that defense is, sure you have some spots in the secondary that could be addressed, but that could be easily addressed in free agency. The offense is well-rounded. You have the self-proclaimed Sonic and Knuckles with Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery, and then you have the two-headed monster that is Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You sprinkle a little Reynolds in there. Some little short passes to Reynolds. And then you have Sam Laporta. You have a very well-rounded offense. Say Jared Goff, but Jared Goff, he's a really good player. That's why he was in the MVP conversation this year.
He wasn't in conversation. He was in the whispers. He was on the outside looking in.
You can hate all you want. I have the Detroit Lions as the best team going into the 2025 season.
All right, man. Whatever you say.
All right.
Well, let's see how this holds up in the coming weeks. That's all the time we have for today on the Thursday Blitz. Thank you for tuning in to the Thursday Blitz presented by Offense Defense.